Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting to get to a critical mass of attendees here, and then we'll get started. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone who's joining. Thanks for joining us. We'll just get started in a few minutes here as we have more attendees joining. We'll just get to a critical mass and then we'll get started. Wonderful to see so many familiar names on the attendees list and also so many new names. Welcome to everyone. Once again, welcome to everyone who is joining our webinar for the P4G call for partnerships. It's a pleasure to see you all here. We still have more people joining, so we're just going to give it a minute for us to reach a critical mass, and then we will begin.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. So this session will be recording, as well as we invite you to type your questions in the chat box that we'll answer during the session, as well as at the end. We'll have time for a specific Q&A. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we are approaching critical mass, so why don't we go ahead and get started. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Robin McGuckin. I am the Executive Director for P4G, and it is such a pleasure to be here today talking to all of you. I'm really happy to see so many familiar names as well as so many new names. Today, we're going to walk you through the criteria for becoming a P4G partnership. And just keep in mind, a P4G partnership must have a startup business at its core, as the core mission of the partnership is to get that startup business and launch it to investor readiness. So let's go ahead to the next slide and get a start. We'll just have a couple sections here, starting with the P4G overview. Go ahead. Go ahead to the next slide. About P4G. So we work with early stage climate entrepreneurs and ventures in low middle income countries that you can see on the map there. We help them to become investment ready while also working with national level public-private platforms that are comprised of government and industry representatives at the senior-most level in order to not only advance our startups, but also to improve the enabling market systems for other startups coming into this space so that jointly we can help contribute to a just climate transition. We do focus on both mitigation and adaptation on the climate side, with the sectors listed there as our key areas of emphasis. We are funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, the Netherlands, and the Republic of Korea, and hosted at the World Resources Institute. Go ahead to the next slide. Our goal at P4G is to help bridge the climate finance gap by creating and really growing startups, climate startups in each of our partner countries that can grow and become really the climate businesses that are not only financially sustainable, but also socially and environmentally beneficial to their community. We do this by working with you, our partners, to build a pipeline of locally led early stage climate businesses. Each business must be partnered with a nonprofit in order to ensure their environmental and social benefits are on track, to assist with any related policy and regulatory work, and to engage with target communities. At the our national platforms for P4G are at the minister and CEO level, and they help to inform and support key enabling policies, as well as make those important connections with regulators and others who need to understand the business model and perhaps adjust their regulatory interpretation based on the business model. And finally, knowledge and learning are a big part of our remit, and you will see a number of knowledge products on our website, and all of our partnerships must have a knowledge product as well. Go ahead to the next slide. At P4G, we firmly believe that climate solutions require locally led climate businesses. Climate resiliency fundamentally happens at the community level, and we want to see these locally led green businesses that can solve those needs in their communities, provide local jobs, ideally be able to scale their successful solutions to other countries or regions with similar challenges, and in the best case scenario, provide leapfrog innovations to climate challenges. And we all know that small and medium enterprises are the engines of every economy in which we work, providing 70 to 80% of employment for the country, and also providing workforce efficiencies to multinationals that are coming in country. Go ahead to the next slide. As such, P4G has three key elements to our design. The first is our startup partnerships, what we're here to discuss today. And we have an open call for partnerships with periodic windows that close so that we can have an evaluation and take our top applicants to our investment committee for a decision. In each country, including our funder countries, we have national platforms. As I mentioned, those national platforms help us to address policy and regulatory issues. Because our national platforms also include the leading private sector industry groups from our countries, they can also help the business community to understand the sector and some of the solutions, and to help mentor and support startups as they grow. And then finally, knowledge mobilization. We recognize that there is a lot of activity coming up in this area, and we want to contribute to the knowledge and learning of all stakeholders involved. Go ahead to the next slide. So for activity one, our partnerships, our startup partnerships, as mentioned, those startup partnerships must have that climate enterprise and a nonprofit as a core part of the partnership. Based on 5 years of implementation in phase one, we have found that that is really can make or break the success of a startup. We provide grants, typically in the range of 100 to 350K. Those grants come directly to the nonprofit partner, who then can provide sub-grants or subcontracts to the climate enterprise. Therefore, we would like our nonprofit partners to have a solid understanding and experience with grant management, and ideally also with experience working with local enterprises on climate solutions. We also help with investment readiness, primarily with the due diligence required to reach a first financial close. We also support market and regulatory strengthening that is part of the remit of our national platforms and also can be part of the scope of work that is written by our partnerships and supported by the P4G grants. Very importantly, we provide a tremendous network of connections, both politically and critically for investors. We also provide connections to potential buyers and sellers of products for those who are looking beyond the local marketplace. And then finally, knowledge, as always, a critical element of what we do. Go ahead to the next slide. This slide speaks a little bit to the complex structure of our national platforms. We have 9 national platforms, 6 with our low middle income partner countries in which we are implementing and working with our startups, and 3 from our funder countries. And together they provide a tremendous network for our partnerships, for our startups to help them to grow and to succeed. And you can see here some of the types of stakeholders that are involved in our partnerships, from accelerators and tech hubs to buyers and suppliers of products and services that either need to come into our startups to help them to succeed, key technology perhaps needed for our startups, as well as the off-takers or end buyers of those products or services. Going to the next slide. Knowledge mobilization is something, as you can tell, we take very seriously. We work with both our national platforms and our startup partnerships to convene workshops in country. We also have summits at the head of state level. Those are held every other year. Our next summit will be in 2025 in Vietnam. And we produce publications, and we ask for our partnerships to also produce publications to help the broader community understand and advance the state of knowledge and what it takes for locally led climate enterprises to succeed, and also to help the enabling marketplace to strengthen and attract the finance needed to meet our climate transition goals. As a result of our knowledge mobilization, we've been able to create new sectoral mechanisms, new policies and regulations, and of course, new green enterprises that have successfully capitalized in a first financial close, and a new financial facility that we are working on, which should be launched sometime in 2024. Go ahead to the next slide. Some examples of P4G partnerships. Perhaps a few of you are on the call just listening in. If so, welcome. We always love our family members, our P4G family members, to attend our webinars, and we love to promote them. The first partnership here is Digital Food Rescue, led by the startup Eat Cloud. They help to match food from grocery stores, food that is close to expiration, to food banks that need that food for either providing meals or groceries to low-income communities. Digitizing Energy, the second partnership there in Vietnam, is focused on the kinds of integration efficiencies that can be realized when you are able to, as a small business or a large business, adopt your energy consumption based on time of use, and also looking at integration of renewable energy. The third partnership, Africa Bamboo, looks at, works with sustainable bamboo plantations to have the plantations, the practices that sequester carbon. And then with that bamboo, they produce structural and non-structural timber materials for the building sector. Going ahead to the next slide. Here are our results today. To date, we have analyzed, assessed over 1,000 startup applications. We have awarded over 75 partnerships. We have in those partnerships accelerated 40 green businesses, 15, now 16 of which have received a next round of investment. That next round investment is typically at the seed, post-seed, or Series A level. As a result of our work, our companies have been able to leverage 90 million in investment into those financial close and to capitalize their businesses. You can see on the next line for national platforms, we have 9 national platforms created. We've had a number of workshops, public sector commitments, and in Kenya, we've been able to launch a mitigation action facility really focused on e-mobility. And then in knowledge management at the bottom, you can see we've produced a number of reports. We've also taken learning seriously internally and have done a number of assessments on how we can improve our work to help enable this startup ecosystem. As a result, our partnerships have generated over 1,000 jobs and over 1 million individuals have been positively affected. Go ahead to the next slide. We recently concluded our round 1 call for partnerships, and this slide gives you a feel for that progression and how tough the competition is. At the end of each round, we typically can only approve between 15 to 20 partnerships, and we keep it balanced between our countries in every degree possible, with around 2 to 3 partnerships per country. Sometimes in different calls, it ends up a little bit more in one country, a little bit less in the other, but overall, we try to keep that portfolio balanced between our partner countries. So you can see the competition is fierce. We typically receive 100 to 150 applications per round, and as I mentioned, can only award about 15 to 20. Next slide. And I think this one is over to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Robin. Well, I will introduce myself also. I am Patricia Mijares, the Partnership Origination Manager, and I will explain you what are the specific requirements and steps for them to participate in this call. So first of all, I invite you to fully read the guidelines that are already published in the website of P4G, where also you will find the specific material that you need to submit for each of the stages. All the information needs to be in English, and the selection process and the application is composed by 9 stages. The first one is the partnership readiness. It's important that you can contact the national platform liaison or the investment manager of your country, and you can find in the website of P4G the different contact details of each person. And for those consultations, that is important to have is that you can see if your partnership meets the specific criteria and is in the investment stage that is required to participate. In the number 2, that is the concept note, you will also find in the website the specific online form that you need to submit, as well as a template. In this template that you can download is a copy of the online version, and it's important that you can feel and be fully familiar of the documents that you need to attach. So once that you are in the online form, you are ready to apply. As Robin mentioned, we invite you to apply as soon as you are ready. This is an ongoing process, and we'll see the specific deadlines that we have for this round, but apply when you feel that you are meeting the specific criteria. The number 3, that is eligibility screening. Once that we received your concept note, we are screening against these 10 eligible criteria that I will explain in the next slide. And those that are eligible, we will start evaluation with a specific criteria that I will also explain. And those that are rejected will receive a feedback of which is the criteria that didn't meet. And in all the stages where you are rejected, you will receive this feedback. In the number 4, that is shortlisted, so those partnerships that are eligible as well as achieve a specific score of minimum 7 that I will explain and are scored highest will be invited, we are considered shortlisted and are invited to submit a full proposal, that is the number 5. and as well as they invited to pitch, that is the number 6. In the full proposal, you need to submit additional material that you can also see in the website and as well as in the guidelines. That includes the theory of change, work plan and budget, and specific details that will give us the general overview of what is your partnership about. And once that you are invited to pitch, these pitches are virtually. And it's also important that to know that the national platform of your country is invited for those pitches, as well as this national platform is providing specific feedback regarding the alignment with the national priorities. Similarly, in this stage, we can have an organizational assessment that will include interviews as well as on-site visits of the partners. And in the number 7, so once that we are finalizing your evaluation with all the information, you will be, those that are ready to go, the independent grants committee is the one that is taking the final decision. So this independent grants committee is composed by different external experts in the different sectors and are across the different regions, and are the ones that are taking the final decision of who is getting this funding and will be participating as part of P4G. The ones that we have the final list of those are awarded, you will be informed, and we'll start the negotiations. That is the number 8. In this negotiation, we are precising your specific work, the details of your work plan and budget. Can be some changes in that, as well as you will have the access to the language of the specific subgrant that you will aim to sign, and finalize the organizational assessment. So once that we agree these negotiations or final these negotiations, you will be awarded and sign your subgrant, as well as start implementation, and your partnership will be publicly announced. So these are the 10 eligibility criteria that you need to meet to know if you are eligible or not. So the first one, that is a partnership composition. As Robin mentioned, we need to have at minimum two lead partners. So one is the early stage climate business, and the other is a non-profit administrative partner. Can be additional partners in this composition, and that depends on what are the needs of the specific climate business model, as well as in the case of if the non-profit administrative partner is not registered in the country, you need to partner with a local entity. Everything and what are the specific material that you need to submit are in the guidelines. And the number 2, that is experience and track record. We are looking across the members of the partnership, the different partners, that you have the specific skills, expertise that are required for the partnership to enable this investment readiness. In the number 3, the sector and countries, the specific project that the business model that you want to implement needs to be based in one of the P4G eligible countries that Robin already mentioned, and needs to be directly impacting one of the specific P4G sectors that you can see here. In the number 4, the investability, we are looking at the specific stage, the investment stage of your business model is in a seed or post-seed stage. So that is very important. It's something that if you have some questions, you can talk about with your investment manager. And the number 5, enable market environment, is that you have a clear understanding of what are these regulatory framework, what are the barriers that you have for the implementation of your project, what are those challenges, but you fully understand what is required or how you are acting in this framework. In the number 6, the additionality, we want to see that the specific business solution that you are offering is innovative and different of what is currently in the market. The number 7, the impact. In this stage of the concept note, we want to see the specific general indicators and the impact expected during the implementation of the P4G funding, as well as after the implementation regarding climate, economic, and the general indicators. And in the number 8, the activities and budget, we want to see the specific activities that you want to see, that you are aimed to pursue during the implementation, are aligned to the theory of change of P4G, are regarding to enhance your investment, are also in meeting the specific alignment of the eligibility or not eligibility expenses and kosher. In this stage of the concept note, we want to see a summary, and you will have a specific template that you need to use. And in the number 9, responsible business conduct, is in the guidelines, you can see a specific appendix that includes those activities that are considered as P4G exclusion list that if any of your partners can perform, as well as if you have an ESG plan already developed in your company, or you have a plan to develop one, we want to see what are those plans or what has been the development. And in the number 10, the organizational assessment, is that we are running this assessment of the 2 lead institutions that are able to meet those requirements. So what is required for the business partner? So this is the earliest to consider the earliest stage climate business. It's important first, this investment stage that I already mentioned, that needs to be the specific technology that you are offering or the specific product or service needs to be beyond the concept stage. So it has been proven. And if the company is not registered in the country, it's possible, yes, but we want to see what are the intentions, a short-term or long-term, that you have to register. As well, it's very important that you will need to submit the full business plan, as well as all your financial indicators, and we want to see which is the team that is composing this climate business. It's very important that as clear as information will give us more detail of what is a specific status and what you want to offer. And the specific product or service, as I mentioned, needs to be innovative and show this additionality for the market. And it's also very important that the company that this early stage climate business needs to be employing less than 50 persons. So we consider that it's a startup or a smaller micro enterprise. The lead administrative partner in this case is a non-profit entity that is a must to be registered in the country or be partner with an entity that is registered in the country. So it's possible. The experience that is required is that also you can see in the guidelines needs to be managing grants as well as with the sector related that the partnership is implementing the project. And we are not only looking the experience in grant management, we also want to see that this administrative partner is contributing with the capacity to enable the business, has experience in this monitoring and evaluation, because you need to submit different reports during the implementation, has connections with the government, private sector, specific with the community regarding the sector that you are participating, and has this experience in this knowledge product to capture these lessons learned and the learnings in general of the partnership. So it's very important, this value added, when you are choosing your administrative partner and you are making the connection between the two. Those additional partners that are possible is that we don't have a specific requirements to have more than one, besides these local, when the nonprofit entity is not based in the country, but also we don't have a specific limit of how many partners, but that depends on each partnership requirements. So we want to see the full picture that is making sense that to reach this investment stage that we are expecting. So those additional partners needs to be those that are adding value if it's required. So you can have only two partners in the partnership and it's enough. So it depends on each of the cases. Those can include a nonprofit, a large corporations, association of the government, or different entities. But that depends on each of the cases. So which is the evaluation criteria? So once that we said, like we were running the eligibility criteria, those that are eligible, we start this evaluation. And for this evaluation, we are using these 4 criteria that has a different weight, and we are scoring between 0 and 10. It's an evaluation that first we are doing in the hub. And the first criteria, that is a potential to be financially investable, is that we're looking that the specific financial indicators and the specific investment stage that you are saying is clear enough and has this potential to attract more investment. And in the number two, the ability to deliver, we will see that assess that the experience across the members of the partnership, if are and if are only those two or those additional partners, has this capacity, this specific skills, experience that are making what is required for your partnership to succeed. And in the number three, the impact plan and scale, is that we want to see the specific indicators that you are expecting, the specific KPIs, and it's not only regarding the environment, gender, poverty, it's also including the financial indicators that has this potential to succeed during the implementation and after P4G support. And in the number four, the legal and regulatory, is that we want to see that in the understanding that has your partnership for those, what is the framework that you are acting currently, and what are the specific barriers or challenges. We are not expecting that during the implementation you are changing the law, but we want to see that you understand what is required and how you are acting on that. So for the dates so as I mentioned, this is an open call, but if we have 2 deadlines for each year that also you can see in the deadlines. And if you want to be considered in the next deadline or funding decision by the IGC, it's important that you submit your proposal by March 8th. That is the deadline for that. And here, as you can see, the specific dates of what are the stages of when it's happening what. And the independent grants committee that I mentioned is the one that is taking the final decision, is meeting in June. And those partnerships that are selected are expected that will start in September, as well as we will publish the announcement. So which are the materials that you need to use? And it's only a reminder that really carefully read the guidelines as well as review the information published in the website, because we have for those that require a template, we need to use those templates. As well as there are some specific indications regarding the commitment letter, the charter, with this financial information that we have, as well as specifically about the financial information and the pitch. You can see in the guidelines what are the minimum requirements for those documents. So once that you submit the concept note with all the attachments requirements, those that are invited to submit the full proposal will provide additional information that is indicated here, as well as you will have a specific training. We will go to the specific details of how you need to submit the specific documents. And as I mentioned, the pitch is a virtual pitch, and also you will have the opportunity for Q&A sessions, and also we'll run this organizational assessment. And once that we agree, what we are negotiating can be the work plan and budget, the final adjustments, finalize the contract language of your subgrant. So what are regarding the budget and the work plan requirements? So it's important that you are contributing with at least 30% of the cost share. That means that and this cost share needs to be in a monetary way. So it's not in kind. What we mean with not in kind is that we are not expecting that if you have already equipment, property, land that you already buy it, is not eligible. And in the guidelines, there is a specific table of what are the eligible cost share and not. So what, like in the work plan and in the budget, we'll see the specific times where you are contributing with this cost share and are for specific activities that are happening during the implementation of the project. So that can be in grants, loans, operating capital, or there are different monetary margins. And about the budget, those activities that we want to support with cost shared or with the P4G funding are those that are enhancing the investment readiness, that are making really sense for that to attract this investment. And also, it's important to review the specific eligible and not eligible expenses. And as non-eligible expenses, those include large infrastructure, equipment, vehicles, building, though, but you can see the specifics. And also in the budget, we have a specific, like a mandatory activities that even in the summary for the concept note, as well as in the work plan and budget, you need to budget for those. So for those mandatory, we are talking about 3 activities. The first one, there is enable system work, and we will talk more in detail in the training for those shortlisted, is this policy and regulatory work that is expected. The knowledge product, a case study, a short paper that you will submit with the lessons learned during the implementation. And the ESG is in the case that you require to strengthen your current ESG, or is a part of the strategy to have an ESG plan, we can support that. Also, we have 2 activities that are procured and funded by P4G, but you need to have some, it's important for you to know that are happening, as well as you can have some contingencies regarding that. One is the investor due diligence gap assessment that Robin already mentioned. That is an analysis for see that your business model, which is the status of your business model, that is ready for this financial close. And the audit is important that to know that all the partnerships will have a final audit of the process that is hired and paid for P4G. So the general that Robin mentioned is, which is the average of the grants that we are providing is 350,000, but the range is between 100,000 and 500, and that depends on the requirements that you have. But the most important that we are providing is this technical assistance and the knowledge mobilization that Robin in detail, that includes this investor due diligence gap assessment, work with the national platforms, those business matchmaking sessions, work with impact investors, and the access that you will have to different global events with like share your lessons learned and how you are doing the work to scale and break those barriers for the attract investment. So here you will have my details, my email details, as well as in the website, in the contact information, you can see the specific of my email and the different national platforms on. So feel free to send me an email if you have specific questions, and I will try to reply as soon as possible. So now is the time for the Q&A. If you have additional questions, we'll answer and just type it in the chat box. Thank you.
All right. Well, our team has been kind enough to group some of the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get a start on some of the initial questions in the category of business. We've had a couple of questions about the definition of early stage companies, the definition of a green startup, specific years of operation, etc. And so first and foremost, I would urge everybody to read the guidelines. A lot of this is laid out in the guidelines. But generally speaking, early stage startups should be in the just seed or pre-seed to pre-Series A. Once a company has been able to close their Series A finance, we really do think of them as able to move on and go to sort of a next level of support. And hopefully, if their business plan is well designed and their financial model is well designed, their first close should be keeping in mind the financial needs that they require in order to continue to grow and test their business hypothesis. However, we do have specific definitions that are in our guidelines, so I urge you to read those. Some of those definitions include things like number of employees. We do want to see 50, less than 50 employees. We do not have a specific number of years of operation as a requirement, minimum or maximum, because we recognize that in low middle income countries, it is sometimes difficult to define progress in terms of years due to some of the challenges that are encountered there. We do have some questions about startups that are perhaps in one country, in an eligible country, but maybe owned by or headquartered in a higher income country. And as long as that startup meets our criteria, then and they are either registered in the country of implementation, one of our eligible countries, one of our partner countries, or they have clearly stated and are on a path to become registered in that country, then we could consider them. We do want to see, we've had a couple questions about whether, for example, one NGO could apply with multiple startups. And we do really want to see each partnership focused on an individual startup. We can make some exceptions, but there really has to be a very compelling value add between, if there's multiple startups in a partnership, there has to be some very compelling value add that they provide to each other in order to make their business model successful. We've just found that it takes such focus and effort to get one startup successfully to financial close, that is what we want to put our emphasis on. I think that gets to the questions on the business side. Patricia, do you want to address some of the ones on the NGO side?
Yeah, for sure. So there is one question that if the company hasn't have yet a targeting location, but possess commercial technology with high sustainable way for considering markets correspond to the selection criteria. The company with Russian origin, however, will transfer technology to new markets. It is as Robin mentioned. So we want to see if there is a transfer of technology. This technology needs to be very clear that is besides the concept node, and it's already proved technology is the first thing. And in this case, when a company is transferring the technology to another country of the P4G implementation, want to see that it's not only transferring without know the specific local knowledge and what are the specific local requirements. So it's very key to see there. And maybe if you need additional partners, rather than not only the administrative partner that is locally registered, is that what are the connections to make your business really to succeed, and is so not only transferring like external technology that the market is not ready, culturally speaking, or like it's only in the financial status, no? So it's very key to understand the status and what are the connections that you have for that. And as also Robin mentioned, we want to see if it's not registered in the country currently, what are those plans in short term or that are for that registry, because also we can see that is part of the lessons learned that is important to have a plan for this specific local registration. Also, this question about unregistered new ventures with early operation but not yearly formally registered eligible. Can we apply for an innovative solution which is invented but waiting for the standard regulation to be launched in the market? So for that is, as I mentioned, it's very important to understand what is this seed or post-seed stage and what we mean for approved technology, that is approved service market that we already know that is not in a pilot. It's always an assessment that is not only internally, also for this independent grants committee. They want to really see that you already proved that is possible. And all the different notes that are regarding that to know that your business will be successful are already, you know? So it's very important to understand that it's besides the concept note and it's not in a pilot, that is already testing the specific service or technology.
Great. And then I can pick up with some of the questions on budget. I see there are questions on Are there limitations on grant sharing between the business enterprise, the startup, and the nonprofit? We do not put any specific limitations. Instead, what we do is we evaluate your proposal. What we really want to see is proposals that predate P4G. We really don't want to see applicants coming up with something new in order to apply to P4G, but rather applicants that say, I've been working on this business plan, I've been working on this financial pro forma, I've taken it out to investors already, I'm still looking for funding to get through the seed stage. Those are the kinds of companies that we want to see, where we can look at the existing financial pro forma, look at the budget that you have submitted for P4G and see how they match up and align to your company's growth trajectory towards investment readiness. So that's really what we're looking for when it comes to how our grants are used. There is also a question on eligible items. And I can tell that this person, it looks like, did read through our guideline criteria. So thank you for that. And there's a question regarding large scale equipment or capital equipment. We do not include that in our grant funding. We really want for our startup businesses to be able to capitalize to cover those expenses, because those are very important assets in the business's overall valuation. And we want to see those come from investors, from returnable funds, either in the form of equity or debt, rather than those being subsidized by grants. And the reason is that a solid business model needs to include that cost of capital in order to be financially sustainable over the long term. And very importantly, replicable without grants, because that's really what we're looking for. Then I see another question on partnerships joining after the deadline. I just wanted to say about the deadline, our call for partnerships is open, I think, through the end of 2025. So you have time to prepare your application, and we want to have you apply when you are really ready to apply. So please form your partnerships and then apply. You can work with our P4G country managers in each of our countries. Please reach out to them. You can find their names on our website, and they can help you to understand a little bit more and to perhaps provide some reflections on your business model. Each of our country managers typically keeps certain office hours where they're able to be available to answer questions. We do require a 30% cost share. Yeah, Patricia, go ahead. Do you want to?
Yeah, there is one question about the non-for-profit organization can be a government organization. So you can see, so no, it needs to be a non-profit organization, but not a government agency. And you can see the specifics requirements of what we consider a non-profit and what are not. In one of the appendices in the guidelines, there is a table that indicates that. And as I mentioned, it's very important that when you are choosing this or making those matching with a nonprofit organization, has the experience and like managing grants, as well as in the sector that your partnership is directly impacting. So it's not because it's only a nonprofit. Needs to have at minimum these two expertise, and you want to see that is adding value to the partnership, is like with the skills, with experience, with the monitoring that is doing knowledge, like in the knowledge mobilization, and not only administrating the grant.
Great, thank you. And I see here a question about a startup that is looking for a nonprofit to partner with and having difficulties finding a nonprofit to partner with. There again, I would guide you to our Ethiopia country manager. This question comes from Ethiopia, but to those of you in other countries, also look to the P4G country manager there who can help to answer your specific questions or perhaps provide connections to nonprofits that can be aligned with your own startup concept. We do want our applicants to have that partner already before they apply. If you apply without that partner, you will automatically be rejected, which of course is nothing personal. It's just we get so many applications. We have a very strict set of initial eligibility screening criteria. And that's why in each of our countries, we do have a P4G country manager who is also our national platform liaison and has a certain amount of their time that they can spend to talk to and help partnerships understand if they're eligible, if they should apply, etc. Let's see, I'm looking through additional questions and I'm not seeing anything more coming through. Okay, here's an additional question. What are the eligibility of a well-established company in another country, in this case, India, which has successfully conducted some pilot projects or demos in an eligible country, in this case, Kenya? So as long as you are intending to register in Kenya as a for-profit business, then you can be considered eligible as long as you also meet the other criteria for the size of the company, etc. There is a question about, can the admin partner and the startup submit more than one application? For example, one application for climate smart agriculture and one for food loss and waste. So here, what we really want to see is one application per startup. And if that startup has a solution that is both in the climate smart agriculture and in the food loss and waste, that is fine. That might actually strengthen that partnership because perhaps they have multiple marketplaces they can address with their technology or service. So I would encourage everyone to just submit once and just submit the best application you can with your existing business plan and financial pro forma. There's another question, if the startup has negative results for profitability, can they participate? Absolutely, yes. The typical startup progression is one where there is essentially negative revenue in the initial years, and that's often called the valley of death for startups, because that is the most difficult time when you have to find a way to capitalize, and this is where P4G helps come in with grants, before you're really at that point where an investor will be willing to put their money in to your concept. So we do absolutely accept applications. We want to see that information very clearly so that we can understand your past trajectory and your anticipated future trajectory.
Well, there is a question about the timelines and the specific dates. So for the new partnerships that you are applying, we have a minimum period of implementation between 18 and 24 months. And we have a specific date. So the aim is that all the partnerships for each round are starting at the same time. For the time that you require, if it's 18 months or if it's 20 or 24, is that it's something that you will indicate in the work plan and budget, and it's something that is as required for the partnership. And for the specific deadline, so if you are applying for this March 8th, you will be considering the decision of June. And if you are selected, the implementation will start in September. So that why between June and September is because in those months we have the negotiation and we are finalizing the subgrant of your partnership. So those 18 or 24 months will start in September. And so it's consider more or less those dates are 6 months between the 3 months between the decision and the start of your implementation, and is something that will fully communicate in this training for those shortlisted applicants.
Great. And I see the question on what if a technology has never been tested in the eligible country, but it has been tested in another country. There is an international standard for technology readiness that takes this into consideration. And we do include a reference to that in our guidelines. And essentially, what we want to see is that the base technology that you're using for your minimum viable product has been proven in a marketplace somewhere in the world. It may not have been proven in the P4G partner country, and that is okay. As long as it has been proven in someplace in the world, we are willing to take that risk with you of trying it in our eligible country, as long as all the conditions seem right in your business plan and financial pro forma takes the risks involved in taking a proven technology to a new environment into consideration. I wanted to also say that the period of time that P4G provides grants, 18 to 24 months, is a short period of time. We do not anticipate that by the end of that period of time, our startup companies will be, 100% commercially viable and successful. We rather see that we are part of that journey for a specific period of time that is a critical period of time for your startup companies to be finalizing investor readiness based on that minimum viable product, and then getting out with your pitches to investors. That is really that space where we are part of your journey and helping you. So we do not expect a project to start and finish in that 18 to 24 months, but rather that we are joining in as part of an ongoing project. And that project, of course, is to have a commercially viable company that provides environmental and social benefit. Okay, just looking at the questions. Here's a really good one. If an international, for example, holding company that does not qualify as a startup wants to establish a new entity in an eligible country, could it be considered eligible? And this is something that we have spent a lot of time thinking about. And in phase 1, we did some essentially partnerships testing out our value add in that space. And what we've really seen is that where the most support is needed is for startups that do not have a parent company that is, in a sense, supporting them. I recognize that for large companies that are looking to diversify into a new country, such as one of the P4G countries, it can be very risky and very difficult to get that corporate buy-in and that budget carve out to do that. However, those companies are much better positioned in the broader marketplace to be able to do that than the locally led startups that are really coming up from scratch in those countries, or are coming up from scratch in other countries, but really think their technology can apply in a P4G country. And that is why we do not provide grants to subsidiaries of or startups of larger companies that would not be eligible. I hope that's clear enough. And if not, please type in an additional clarifying question. And of course, read the guidelines, talk to the country manager for P4G, and I think that will help you to have a better understanding.
We have one question about the foreign currency, and that happens, well, it's a question for Ethiopia, but we have that question also for another countries. So what we suggest is that if it's possible to open a bank account in US dollars is the best, no? But also we know that for some countries that is not. So unfortunately, we need to give our grant in dollars. So that, and the recipient, the main recipient, and that is because it's international cooperation, is the main recipient is the administrative grant. So they need to, and if it's the case that you need to refund this money that were not used, you also need to refund that resources in US dollars. So it's important to consider those changes that we don't want to have, but we have this problem of foreign currency.
Yes, and then carrying on from that question, which was really driven by the context of Ethiopia, we also want to acknowledge that some of our countries are have a more supporting startup ecosystem, a more supporting financial ecosystem, a more supporting ecosystem in terms of the number of incubators and accelerators, and going even further upstream, the number of universities even that have programs for entrepreneurs. So some of our countries where where their ecosystem is not as strong, P4G is looking to do some work that is further upstream to help build that volume of entrepreneurs who are able to then hopefully launch those innovative startups that we can support. So we do acknowledge that the different countries are at different stages in their development, and we are working to address that with our national platforms hand in hand. And I think there's a question on audit or budget, audit and budget. Could I kindly turn over to our colleague Apollonia to answer that? If she's able to get on. I'm not sure if the panelist setting has limited that. Oh, great. Apollonia, go ahead.
Thanks, Robin. On the questions that we are getting on the cost share, on the budget cost share, so we expect the partnership to contribute at least 30% of your 30% towards the budget of the total budget. So the cost share is in terms of cash and not in kind contribution. Thank you.
And a point there that goes back to the question about using our grants for equipment or capital expenditure. That is also where the supporting grant, that cost share, can come in and be able to support those purchases if needed. We also like to see the cost share because we acknowledge that startups often have to pivot as they learn more about their marketplace and the suitability of their minimum viable product for their marketplace as they get that very important feedback from the early customer sets. And so often our startups have to pivot as they learn. And so having those additional partners, whether they are accelerators or angel investors or owners equity coming in to support, that is very important to the long-term success of the startup.
And we have another question regarding the grant also. So if they invest, the grant 100% invest in the company, or it could be split for the relevant activities conducted by the NGO, well, by the non-for-profit. So yes, that is possible. So, but we are expecting that those activities that are conducted by the non-for-profit are those regarding the specific implementation and the purpose of the partnership. So it's remember this non-for-profit is a main recipient and also are eligible the specific activities for the business, but we are looking the overall activities that are budget that are making that are contributing what is the purpose of the business to attract investment and to enable the knowledge product that is required for P4G. So yes.
Great. And then we have an additional question that is a nuance on one of the earlier questions. If a company in one of our eligible countries, in this case, a Kenyan company, has been operating in the market for 8 years and wants to develop a new product targeting a new market segment, would they be eligible for the P4G grant? And this goes back to the earlier question where, unfortunately, the answer is a little bit, it depends. It depends on your size of your company and the capitalization of your existing company. But typically, we would consider that if a company is larger than that startup threshold of 50 employees, that they probably have the resources, intellectual resources, you know, a CFO, the right staff to help them to understand and launch the new business product or service. So it would likely not be eligible, but it does depend on a number of factors. So again, this is where I think it is important to have that discussion with a country manager for P4G or with Patricia. Right. Do we have more questions coming in? Okay, here's one. Is a cooperative considered a nonprofit? A cooperative can and associations absolutely can be and are considered nonprofits. And I think really more pertinent, they are eligible nonprofits or NGOs for P4G grants. However, we do want to see that they have that experience in receiving and managing grants. And we want to see that they have a clear value add to the startup that is the core purpose of that partnership. And I'll mention that co-ops and associations can also be maybe not the lead NGO, not the administrative partner. That's what we call the lead NGO, the administrative partner. They can instead be a sub-recipient, a sub-partner to that grant, where perhaps a co-op has is comprised of members of the target marketplace, the target community that the product or service is aimed towards benefiting. And similarly, an association may include members that are also part of that target marketplace or are otherwise interested in participating in the marketplace that's relevant to that startup.
There is one question about the audit. So as I mentioned, all the partnership needs to submit will have a final audit. And the firm that is in charge of that is hired by P4G. We are paying for those resources. So what you need to consider is only the time for submit and the work that is to submit the specific information that is required, and to know that all your expenses and implementation will be audited.
Okay, and it looks like we have an additional question does a climate business that received seed funding and is currently being incubated by a nonprofit, would they fit the eligibility criteria? And the answer is absolutely yes. We recognize that typically nonprofit incubators are nonprofits typically. They also have limited grant amounts, and so P4G can be an important additional source of financing, and that incubator themselves can be a very important partner for that startup. In fact, we prefer to see startup companies that have been through some sort of incubator or accelerator program and or have that as a budget. If they have not been through that, have that in their budget for the P4G period of the grant. All right, and then another question is around when the co-financing, that 30%, is considered eligible. And so that co-financing has to be during the period of the P4G grant implementation. So if you've received financing in the past, but have already expended those funds and will not be expending them during the period of the P4G grant, then they would not count as part of that 30%. That 30% cost share has to be expended during the implementation period of the P4G grant. All right. Well, I think that our questions have slowed down significantly, and we have hopefully answered all of them. We will be updating our FAQ, our frequently asked questions, on the P4G website with some of the highline categories of questions that you've been asking. These are really good questions, and we do appreciate each one of these webinars because usually there are one or two new questions that come out that are good for us to be considering and talking about internally as we all learn and grow on this climate startup journey. So let me say thank you very much. I want to especially thank Patricia, who has been leading this process for P4G. Thank you so much. And then also thank you to Brian and Apollonia, who have been diligently answering all your questions behind the scenes, as well as a huge thanks to Sangeetha for organizing this and keeping us all on track with this process and with our communications in general. And then finally to the entire P4G team, thank you so much for all that you're doing in each of our countries, helping to make our partner startups and our national platforms successful on this climate journey. Thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you in the future. And on a final note, the recording for this webinar will be will be posted on our website. So you will be able to access this there and share it also to any members of your companies, your startups, or other startups that you know in the marketplace who might be interested. Please share that recording, and let's continue to grow this space and address the huge finance gap that exists in order for us to meet our climate transition goals. So with that, I'll say thank you, everyone, and I look forward to meeting some of you in the future. Bye-bye.